Blessings and welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. Our mission here is to encourage open dialogue around mental health among Black communities, and we appreciate you for being tuned in with us. I am your host, Stephanie Jones, the founder and CEO of Salem Mindset Counseling Collective, and I am a therapist and mindfulness life coach. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. India White as we discuss the important topic of exploring strategies for overcoming academic stereotypes and fostering grit among students of color, a deep dive into implementing equitable practices. We'll be back to explore this topic and more in just a moment. I was muted. So we are back. Thank you again for joining us as we discuss the topic of exploring strategies for overcoming academic stereotypes and fostering grit among students of color, a deep dive into implementing equitable practices. I'm going to bring up our amazing guest, Dr. India White, and we are going to dive right into this conversation.
Hi, good morning. How is everything?
Hello, how are you? How are you?
I
So
am,
glad to have you back.
thank you. I'm glad to be here and I'm happy to know that we're talking about my two favorite topics, grit and equitable practices.
Hello. I was telling you, before we started recording, when I saw the topic, I said, I know who will be doing this topic, what expert will be on, and it was you. And we're so happy. You are such a wealth of knowledge. So happy. I'm going to repeat it again. So happy to have you back and glad that you're here to lend us your knowledge, your insight, because it was super helpful last time. And we know it's going to be just as good, if not more, this time. So come on, let's get right into it. I'll get right into the questions, but I would like you to, like we did last time, just explain a little bit of who you are. Let every viewer, whether they're watching it live or gonna see it, on a re-recording, let's just know who you are a little bit.
Thank you so much again for having me on this platform, Steph. My name is Dr. India White. I am a TEDx speaker and national education consultant and an author of over 46 books. And I also contribute to math textbooks. And so my entire purpose in life at this time is to assist principals and teachers in closing the achievement gap by developing grit and helping them implement equitable practices across this nation. So I've been honored to work with thousands of teachers and administrators, superintendents, whether it's through keynotes or professional development sessions, workshops, book studies, book reviews, and then just one-on-one consultations. I've just been able to do that across this nation. I've been able to see results already. So I'm super excited about being here and being able to share more of these insights and of my expertise with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Y'all, can you see why she is qualified to speak on this topic? This is her life work. This is what she does. So that's perfect. So let's get into the first question. What are some academic stereotypes that are present in the educational system?
Well, I think the first thing is that, not all students can learn. So, in particular, your BIPOC community, your biracial, indigenous, people of color, it's been noted that these students, aren't really going to be your outliers. They're not really going to be gifted. For instance, I had a personal situation where my son was in a particular district and he was already a gifted student, but when we got to this new district, they told me that he looked like he was special needs and that he needed to retake the gifted test to prove that he was actually a gifted student, even though he had gotten a 92% on the district exam and the
Oh,
district previously, which was actually a stronger district than that district. We had to go through the process again, and they finally came back to me and apologized and said, "We're sorry, Dr. White, we're sorry. We just assumed that he was a slow student, that he was special needs, just because he was African American." So sometimes these stereotypes do creep into the education system, and not all students are given a fair chance. Not all students are assumed to be gifted or assumed to be proficient. Sometimes people assume that, if a student did do well, that they cheated, if they're a student of color. And so I think that we need to start unveiling some of those stereotypes and seeing how can we assist so that we can, approach the education space without bias, in a way that, would be more beneficial to students and not detrimental, as some of these things. Some of the other stereotypes are that, students of color are not really interested in STEM fields. So you're not really going to see students of color, aspiring to be an astronaut or aspiring, to go into engineering space, aerospace engineering, and things like that, which we all know is definitely not true. Another stereotype is that, some of those careers, other careers, being a pilot, things like that are not really the best careers for students of diverse backgrounds. You also have it where women are not really seen as the leading edge when it comes down to whether it's being a pilot or being a mechanic or being an engineer or being an astronaut. Sometimes women are really slighted as well. So we've got plenty of stereotypes that are taking place right now in the educational space, that we need to definitely move beyond and grow beyond so that we can continue to be a stronger nation together.
absolutely. And I mean, thank you for that just nice overview of some of those stereotypes that we see and maybe don't even recognize that are stereotypes. And so the little like side question of that is, where do some of these stereotypes come from? I think in order to solve them, or in order to say let's eradicate some of these, we have to see the root of it. So if you don't mind just briefly sharing where some of these stereotypes come from. I think some of it is obvious, but we've been, I don't know, encountering this for so long that you just kind of get used to it.
Right. And so I think you have to look at the history of our nation. So
Yes.
the thing is, we can't just say, oh, this is happening and I don't know where. Like, you have to trace history. And so that makes me go right back to Brown versus Board of Education, and how hard people of color had to, in particular, African Americans had to, and Blacks had to fight in order to even have a place in education system when it was
Yes.
integrated. But then once it was integrated, because, African Americans, unfortunately came from slavery and their ancestors came from slavery, there were many negative connotations and curses that were spoken over the African American people. Oh, you're stupid. You'll never get this. You don't belong here. You belong in the field. You belong picking cotton. I mean, there was just a TikToker the other day, and she said something like, why is this person?" She said, "Black people don't belong in country music." And she's like, "You know what you guys are doing? You were picking cotton. You shouldn't be creating country music," because she was offended by Beyonce's, song on her whole album, her whole country music album. So I say that because when you have people that are still telling those same stories of history, and they tell it in a way that makes one group feel inferior to another group, and they continue that narrative, that is where we need to focus in on how we can change that so that we can move forward as a nation and not continue to go backwards, going back to the 1930s. We talk about making America great again, but when we say that phrase, we have to look at that phrase very carefully, because if we're talking about financially great, we also have to consider that there were some systemic things in place at the time. Slavery, there was abuse towards African Americans, there were lynchings, and that was at a time when America was economically great. So can we have both? I don't think we want both, right? So we have to figure out, how do we move forward by, we can make America great, but that doesn't mean that it has to be to the detriment of another group, in particular, whether it's like African Americans or someone in the BIPOC community. So with that said, there are a lot of academic stereotypes that are taking place, and we have to go back to the root of our nation's history and move beyond some of those painful moments and those hurtful setbacks, and see how we can progress beyond those academic stereotypes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I know there's so much more that could be said, but we just want to, just kind of to touch on it, right? That's a whole different episode of the background kind of history of it, because in order to progress forward, we do have to see what happened in the past. So thank you so much for that. Just going back to what you were mentioning about the academic stereotypes, do stereotypes differ in K through 12 versus in higher ed? And if so, how?
So the data looks a little bit different in K-12 versus higher ed. I think usually in higher ed, you've got about 60 to 70% of students that are completing their college degrees. And another difference is that they're paying for their academics. And so one thing that I know is definitely different is that students of all backgrounds get to pursue any degree or any area of interest in the higher ed space. However, there are still ceilings put up where certain academic advisors will tell you, oh, I don't think, because of your background that you're going to thrive in this. For instance, I hate bringing up myself, but I want to talk about my experience.
Please do.
I went to my university, and, as a freshman, I had to go to the academic advisor, and this man sat across from me and he said, India, Black girls don't major in math. So I'm going to put you on the statistics track because I don't think you can do it. That was like the first month of school as an undergraduate. And I just think that, when you have academic advisors that are putting ceilings on students, that is an area of focus as to how we can either reteach some of these leaders so that they're not doing damage as they're giving advice, but that they can give more constructive advice that makes sense, something that they're pulling from data or from somewhere else, but not to just assume that I can't do it because of, my background. So that is one thing about higher education, is that these students are entitled to study and pursue whatever. I know some people assume, oh, well, women aren't really going to, go into those STEM fields, or, women are trying to pursue their MRS degree versus pursuing an actual degree in college. So you've got all of that going on. But then versus K-12, I think it's more data focused, but I think also, unfortunately, you've got the NAEP data and you've got the National Center of Education Statistics that's telling us that there has been a significant drop in achievement towards students of diverse backgrounds and their peers, to where it's going to take us over 200 years to close the achievement gap for African-American Black kids, and about 123 years to close that same gap between Hispanic students and their peers. So when you have this situation and the data like that, that data is a little bit different, because in colleges, you're not really comparing demographics to demographics, per se. Right. You're just trying to make sure all students can graduate. So we're looking at the graduation rate versus, just solely the demographics of how students are being proficient in crossing over in the K-12 space. So with that said, I think that is why the stereotypes and the data hits a little stronger in K-12, because we're constantly giving the students the same test. They're on the same level, same ages, all this, versus college. I mean, you can be 70 years old trying to get a degree in math. I think that there are some age discrimination that takes place in colleges as well, where if you're enrolling in a class, calculus 1, and you're 70 years old, you're going to be in a class full of 18, 19-year-olds. So it's going to look a little awkward. And then people that are older have to decide if they can really hang in there, and ignore that age discrimination as their younger peers are playing on their iPads and they're doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? That they can kind of block that out and stay focused. So I think, the stereotypes more for higher ed is going to be more around age and more about, and also wealth, depending on, where you're coming from and on the rank of socioeconomic status, how much more access you get or how much more favor you get. If you're an athlete, do you get the answer key from the professors? Like, there's a lot of different things that take place when it comes down to higher ed learning for scholars. So, so those are some stereotypes there.
Yeah, you even making me think of, so I'm a school counselor in a high school, right? 9 through 12, grades 9 through 12. And just thinking that I've had many students, I work with the ELL population, so students from all over the world. And students are saying, I want to do advanced level, I want to do honors level. And when they go to ask their teachers, they're like, maybe not, and then the students get into the classes because we fight for them and we advocate for them and they crush it. They're amazing. They're doing well, because I think a lot of people are not recognizing that outside of America, the classes are so different, right? They're doing double math, double science, double history, where we're just kind of doing one. So
Right.
I just your statement made me think of that. I'm like, you can even see that where some students are kept at a CCP level or a lower level because, they're a foreigner or they're an outsider, they're an immigrant. They can't do it. So even in that space, it can be a little tricky. Yeah, it's terrible. And I'm like, so it's good, that we have people who advocate for these students and parents to push and really advocate and have a voice, to make sure their students are in the right level, because that affects everything. So that triggered my thought. I'm like, I see this almost every day. That's really interesting. So we talked about the stereotypes. I think it's good for us to talk about how do the stereotypes affect students of color.
Well, yeah, finishing and trickling into what you were just speaking about and letting that trickle into this question, it reminds me of my senior year of high school. I went to my English teacher to see if I could take AP English. I had a 92%, and at the time, an A was a 94%. And so I was in AP Calculus, AP Government. I was in Spanish 4. At the time, they did not offer AP Spanish. And I wanted AP English. So I went to my teacher and asked her, hey, can I take AP English? And she just said, well, India, I don't think you can do it. You're behind 2 points. You need a 94. So I'm just not going to recommend you. And I never forgot that. And now that my main work is in writing, I'm writing math textbooks. I'm writing 46 plus books, or already written 46 plus books besides the math books. I write all the time. I love writing. I do blogs, articles, scholarly articles. Just had an article submitted to the American Math Journal, American Mathematical Society Journal, which is a very prestigious journal article, and I'm very honored for that. But it just makes me think what opportunities were missed out on because it was assumed that I couldn't do it because I missed 2 points and I was a homeless student going through transition and overcoming abuse. And that's all my teacher could do for me. And so it makes you think, why was she in the education space if she was going to be a gatekeeper in such a detrimental way? We have to start questioning the motives of educators. Why are we believing certain stereotypes? The student looks like that, so they can't do it. I remember teaching math when I first started teaching math in Hillsborough County. I had a student, and I gave a competition, and it was a tutoring hours competition. And I told the students, I said, the student who comes with the most hours of tutoring and shows the most proficiency, they're going to get a prize. So it wasn't enough that you checked in. Your scores had to reflect it. I had a student who came and he had a level 1, I believe, and it went up to a level 3 or level 4. He was African American and he had dreads. He sagged the whole nine, and people were shocked to see that his name was at the top. It was like, whoa, where did that come? Yeah, that's what happens when you give everyone a fair chance and you eliminate those stereotypical barriers, because those are like glass ceilings, that invisible glass ceilings that students have to climb through. And I just don't think that's fair. So I remember that. And then I just vowed to myself, and I vowed that I would make choices that would not be abusive to students, choices that I know I can sleep at night, choices that would not, continue the narrative of those stereotypes of, for instance, all Asians are into STEM fields. Not necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily. They are brilliant, but that does not mean all of them are interested in being a doctor or being a lawyer. Like, what if they want to be a teacher? What if they want to, go into the arts? Why not? And so these are some things that we seriously, as educators, have to address so that we can start breaking those cycles, because some of those cycles are still intact because these
Very much so.
are still intact. And once we fall out of love with those stereotypes, then we can, embrace more. I mean, there's other stereotypes. Oh, all Black women can sing. Oh, not this one. Sorry. It's like, I can write, I can speak, but singing is not, I'm not a Beyonce. I'm not going to belch it out. I might be able to carry a little tune, but I'm not going to be that choir girl that's just blowing it out of the ballpark. I've had so many people that were not of my demographic assume, oh, girl, I know you can sing. Come on, belch it out for me. Let me hear it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I can do an equation. Give me a pencil paper.
I can do a calculation.
You can do some calculus. I've had people tell me, oh, you look like you're getting ready to go into work, what are you getting ready to go do? And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting ready to go speak and train some teachers, some administrators. You? Really? Oh, wow. Yeah, me. We're in 2024. So, I think that, once we fall out of love with those stereotypes, we'll start seeing more progress as we move forward.
I love that phrase, once we fall out of love with these stereotypes, because it's a deep and passionate love that we have with stereotypes in this country and all over the world, that we assume by how someone looks, their appearance, how their hair is, how their clothes are, their socioeconomic background, that they are not smart enough to achieve in school. And it's a huge detriment. And I love the term that you use, gatekeeper. School counselors can be gatekeepers.
Yes, they are.
Teachers, gatekeepers, right? Department heads can be gatekeepers. I became a school counselor because my school counselor, we were called guidance counselors back then, recommended that I go to a community college.
Oh, wow.
Just off the bat, I'm like, what? Hold on. If my parents weren't who they were, then I would be in a community college. And there's nothing wrong with community college. But why are you recommending someone to go there when there's other opportunities, So it is very interesting to see who has the keys and what gates they're locking up. They're allowing certain students to go through and keeping others behind. When our students, when BIPOC students, students of color, Black and brown, can do these assessments, can achieve high grades and beyond, you showed, and there are many other cases that show, when you allow students to show what they can do, they will meet you and then go beyond what you think they can do. But if we tell them and show them and make them feel like you're not able to do this, they will prove us right every time.
Wow. And that's why there's power in representation, because when students see leaders that are powerful, they see an African-American male, an African-American female that's writing the math textbook, that's writing the book, that is making a significant impact on their ability to believe that I can do this. Yes, I can, because look who wrote the book. But if they never see themselves in the book, they won't believe it. If they always see examples of themselves being incarcerated or, themselves being pregnant at age 16, then they're going to believe that. That's why there's so much power in the industry, and they have such a pull, because they have so much representation of that type of standard. And so if we're trying to shake up the world of education, we have to come with that same strength of education, or that strength of representation through our visuals, through our textbook examples, not just the one and done, not this tokenism, but it's thoroughly embedded throughout the curriculum so that people can believe that we really are for representation, so that our students can thrive no matter what their demographic, no matter what their background. They'll feel like they really can thrive in any subject area that's thrown at them.
Absolutely. And I think it's such a good topic. I mean, because it really opens your eyes. Sometimes when you're so steeped in stereotypes, you don't even recognize that you're in it. It just looks like the norm. Limits and the ceiling and the prison cells and the walls and the boundaries and the boxes put up around us, they become our home. We don't even recognize that we were put in a box.
It's abuse.
Yeah, we don't even notice it. So just I think we kind of answered this, but just flowing into that, how do the stereotypes, or these stereotypes that we mentioned, make learning inequitable? We've covered it a little bit, but like, what are some things that make it inequitable?
So when we start limiting students by the way they look, by where they come from, saying, oh, they speak Spanish, so I don't think they can take Algebra 1 honors, shame on us. I think that, whenever we're limiting students and taking opportunities off the table for students because of where they come from, or because where their parents came from, or because of stories that we heard, or because of just our own assumptions. I just think it's such a sad and limited fixed mindset. And I think it's mental illness when people thrive in that, when they thrive in limiting people and tearing people down and shutting people down, whether it's race, related, or if it's language related, and they just can't seem to see someone like, okay, so I had a situation where a student, I heard of a situation, a student scored 100% on the exam, in a science exam, African-American male. The teacher was upset because that student was the only student that scored it 100%, and they were African-American. So they regave the test and told the other students, hey, you can make up whatever, because I want to make sure that one student is not the only 100% in my class. Even though that student, everybody took it and it was fair, they had to bring down, like the truth that this student actually was the smartest student by making everyone take it again, so that other students didn't feel bad that they were basically going against one African-American male who got the 100%. So, and that was because in that teacher's mind, it's not enough to just have an African-American be at the top. Why does African-American have to be at the top? Why can't it be someone of their race, or someone of and I think that when we can't accept the truth that certain African Americans, Hispanics, Asians will break those stereotypical barriers, and they will be at the top. They will change history. They will be the first. They will have the high score. They will be valedictorian. And that's the thing. Like, certain people, certain African Americans and Hispanics have been valedictorian, and yet they were refused to give a speech. They were refused that honor that they earned.
Correct.
It was given to someone else wrongfully. I've had that, I've had this situation even in other areas where gender, because you're female, no, we don't want you to speak. We'll raise up a male that was not even on your level, even though you were the smartest or you were the one. We'll raise up a male to do it, just because that's what tickles us. That's what gets us going. So that's how it makes learning inequitable, because these are unfair practices that people have to sit through and believe the narrative of. And I think that we have to become serious about wanting to change the narratives, wanting to also change the experience of students, of all students, in particular your BIPOC students, and how are they really feeling when they show up to learn? Are they feeling like they belong? Are they feeling like they can thrive? Not only belong, I can tell you, I sat in so many classes feeling imprisoned, feeling at any moment my teacher was out to get me to try to suspend me because I was African American. Teachers that thought I didn't know anything because I was African American. And then when I showed up and I actually surpassed what they thought I knew, that was a problem. So when you're sitting in environments like that, it does start to weigh in on you to where
Yes.
you feel like you can't trust any of your teachers. And it's horrible. It's abuse. It's like you're sitting on eggshells and you're just wanting to learn and you're tensed up. I hate working in situations like that. I hate being a student in situations like that. And I know I'm not alone.
Right.
And these are things that I think African Americans and BIPOC community have learned to bite their tongue and take it. But somebody has to start speaking out and say, it's not fair and it's disgusting and it has to stop. We are not in the 60s anymore. And so we shouldn't have to tolerate 60s type of work environment, academic environment like that. That should not, because it does make learning inequitable, because it affects the mental health of students. It affects their emotional well-being, and it just really slows down the progress of anyone that has to go through inequitable practices.
It does. And just while you were speaking, I'm like, okay, we're talking about America, not even thinking about, not even being able to really touch on outside of this country, outside where there's just so many things. I mean, I think we've made a lot of progress in this country, but in other countries, there's so many stereotypes that are still sitting on people,
Yeah,
affecting how they learn, where they learn, what they can learn. Like that is the pandemic. That is the worldwide pandemic. These stereotypes and how limiting they can be on people of color, how limited they can be in the Black community across the diaspora, from the motherland to everywhere we can think of, how these stereotypes sit on people and what it does to the mind, right? This, we're talking about mental health. This is what it does to the mind, and it really starts to make you have that imposter syndrome. It really starts to make you
right.
say, should I be here? Can I be here?
Mm,
And then, do I have to work 10 times? I hate that phrase. You have to work 10 times harder than everybody else. What does that do to the mind? It begins to fragment it. It begins to make you say, I can't really be my true self. So you hide yourself, you put on this
yeah,
mask, this
you're
facade,
true.
and it really makes you go through life like that, living two lives, having to live in that duality. So I want to ask, right, especially about school age students, because when you're in college, your parents don't really advocate for you as much, right? Maybe if you're 18, 19, possibly your
Right.
parents can mention some things, but you're typically advocating for yourself. So specifically, or more so to school age students, right? We talked about the stereotypes, what they can do and the effect they can have. How can parents of school age children identify or check if these stereotypes are occurring? Just because we mentioned that stereotypes are always happening, probably since the inception of this country. It's our normal now, and sometimes we normalize it and can internalize it. How do we recognize that our students are dealing with some stereotypes?
So first things first is we have to have conversations with our learners, and then we have to be on top of their grades. So I am a helicopter mom, and I'm proud of that. My children, and I think any parent out there, no matter the background, I think any parent that really cares for their child will be checking in regularly to figure out what's going on with the grades. Why did they get an 80% when they're gifted? Why did that grade drop? I don't understand what's going on. How did they fail that test? You've got to know your child and know their academic, like their academic performance, their history, their ability, so that you can appropriately address things. So, I find that whenever students have these gaps in learning, or student scores a level 1, or they failed a test, that is when a parent should really be following up to see how can we turn around the trajectory of their success right now, because they're not doing as well. It's when a parent goes mute, or when a parent is too busy to care, that students can really fall victim to these stereotypes. Another thing is discipline. I had a district, they tried to discipline my son, and they literally sent a discipline referral, and then they emailed me back and said, oops, it was a mistake, we assigned a discipline and it was a mistake. That's how badly they disciplined students of color. They did it out of habit. How do you assign a discipline and the child did nothing wrong? Like, you had it already to where literally you just press a button and the child is disciplined. And I just scratched my head on that, and I'm like, this district is toxic, and they have issues. They really need help. They're really backwards, and they focus a lot on race and colorism and discipline, and schools. They are a breeding grounds for school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And one day I will expose them. But I think that, when it comes down to districts like that they're assigning disciplines without cause, they're sending in school resource officers to arrest 13-year-olds and things like that. It's ridiculous. And I think the way parents need to identify and check it is they need to look at the disciplinary record of their child to see why is my child getting written up all the time? Why is my child being removed all the time, sent to timeout all the time, being kicked out all the time when they're your athlete or they're doing well? And there's just one teacher that just can't seem to, build a relationship with that child. And so they're targeting that child, and then they're profiling that child, or they're limiting the child by, because they speak another language. So they're making things harder for the child. So I think that parents need to get on board by looking at discipline, looking at, the quiz grades. I would say, especially at the beginning of the year, look at the first couple of quizzes and test it out and see, like, okay, is there a dip or are they doing well? Look at teacher notes, look at what the teacher is saying, look at parent conferences. But parents definitely have to be more active. One thing about the African-American community that I just want to speak to that because I am African-American, that I wish we would focus on is not being so lax and so trusting of others with our children, because not everybody has their best interest at heart. Right. And so I've had teachers that have told, some of my children, oh, well, I just don't know that you can do this, or, this is going to be a really hard test. I just don't see you really knocking this out of the ballpark, or I don't know that you're the smartest student. I'm not sure. And I've had to truly advocate as a mom for my children to where the school district and the leaders know that I'm on top of it. And I am that mama, that mama bear. I've signed up to be helicopter mom of the year. And I don't apologize. And so we need more helicopter moms. We need more helicopter dads. We need more mama bears, more papa bears on the learning. You cannot just say, oh, they're in school, they'll be fine, I'll check it in 5 weeks. No, you need to be checking every week. You need to be intentional. And that takes work. That takes emailing. You need to know who to email. You need to know who to go through. I need to teach on this one day. Who to go through to in the school district, who to email, which school board member represents your zone, which Department of Education leader helps you, which Commission of Education you can go to speak to your needs. But you need to go as far up as possible, because this is literally a war against your child, and they're dealing with different stereotypes and inequitable practices that are detrimental, that could be harmful to them for the rest of their lives. And so I think that we have to help parents identify and check these stereotypes by really having a regular checkup. They should be checking at least once a week on their child's learning, having those conversations as you're driving in the car. Hey, how was school? Tell me about it. And then listen. Oh, where's your homework? Oh, no homework. Well, what did you do in class? Do you have any notes? What did the teacher say? What does the parent app say? What is the school system? What are they tweeting out? Email the principal, email the administrator, find out what you need to find out, because it's your child at the end of the day, and you don't want your child to fall through the cracks. You cannot just be laxed and say, it'll be all right. Well, it is. No, you can't do that. And then just because your child gets disciplined doesn't mean you can't challenge it. Oh, Johnny, again, okay. It's all right. I'm too tired to. No. Look at every line of that discipline and see, okay, what happened? Is this the true narrative? Is there another story? Is this being coded wrong? Is the suspension or whatever being given, is it too strict? Parents need to be on that, because some school leaders are for school to prison pipeline, even though they'll never say it. They
For
say it
sure.
in their actions. And so parents have to be on top of that so that they can save their children from that abuse.
Yeah, I love that, and I think the helicopter mom or the mama bear papa bear has become just like a stigma or like a
Oh,
taboo. You should be that,
yeah.
because the reality is the child is going to be traveling no matter what. Helicopters allow, I'm just looking, like, I'm a visual person. Helicopters allow you to stay right above. You don't want to be a car, because you don't be a car mom, car dad, because you'll be in traffic. You might not be able to get to your child or the learner as quickly. Helicopters stay above all the traffic.
Mhm.
They go, they move, they can shift anywhere. And so staying and hovering over while allowing them to be themselves, it just means you're on top of everything that is going on. Because I can speak to this from a personal space where parents are just not very involved. And a lot of school administrators and a lot of teachers really depend on parents not being very involved.
Yes.
Really hone in on that so that you can do whatever you want. And that, oh, this parent's not going to come in. So we can send a customary letter home. It has to go home, but we know the parent's not going to open it. We know they're not going to see it. I think even recognizing the system and the process can get overwhelming to some parents. So I think whenever you release that, it'll be awesome. And I know that I'll be sharing it with the parents that I interact with every day, because when you're overwhelmed, or when someone is speaking over your level of comprehension, when
Yes.
there's confusing things said, you just turn off completely, or you just nod your head. Yes,
It's
I get it. I
horrible.
get it.
Yeah.
And your learner, your child, your student is left behind, or left to the devices of someone who wants to see them go right from the schoolhouse right into the prison house.
They're
And
even doing things where they're like coding normal children.
yeah.
They're signing them up for ESC. I need parents to hear this, especially BIPOC parents. If you have like a student by third grade, they're going to try to put them in ESC, which would say that they have some type of mental or other health impairment, something. Even though the child is perfectly normal, they're just going through their learning spurts and behavior they have to be taught. Because the thing is, in the African American community and BIPOC communities, sometimes that cultural upbringing is different from the standard
Yes, it is.
upbringing. So, the strict, stringent, hey, sit down with all this that, other cultures might emulate does not necessarily trickle down to other cultures, like in the BIPOC communities. So then there's an assumption, oh, your child's really active. They have ADHD, or they ESE, and they start labeling the child. And then they teach a million miles an hour. And then they say, oh, Johnny scored a 30%. So let's put him on an IEP. Let's put him in ESE. And Johnny's perfectly normal. And then what happens is Johnny gets to his senior year. And then because he was on access points, he can't get a traditional diploma, which means he can't go into the workforce. He can't go to college because he was set up to fail by
Set up
his
to fail.
teachers since the third grade. Parents need to run from it when they say, oh, let's put them on an IEP or an ESC plan, especially if the doctor has not said that this child has any kind of health impairment, any mental impairment, and the child is just a little wiggly. Okay, maybe Johnny just needs to grow out of that. But these teachers are trying to hone in on that, especially around K through third grade. Some of these teachers are monsters, and they're trying to code these kids. And some parents have began to sue these teachers and sue the school districts, because they're starting to recognize you have been limiting my child, and you have been slowing down my child's academics, and you set them up to fail. Now my child can't go and get a great education or get a job and work. And then that, unfortunately, when they put on the ESE and then they get the access points and they don't do the traditional diploma, then that unfortunately automatically defaults that child to relying on the government, TANFs, food stamps, things like that, because they weren't set up to be successful.
And that's the
So
goal.
yeah, we have to address that. Parents of telling you, parents of BIPOC communities, you need to be very cautious when they come to you and they say that your child needs an IEP and needs to be on access points or ESE when there's nothing mentally charted by a doctor that shows that there's anything wrong with that child. I would refuse those services because it would literally set that child up to fail later in their life, because they might not be able to obtain a traditional diploma. So parents of BIPOC communities need to keep that in mind.
Correct. Be very diligent. And it's true. That's exactly what happens. And many parents don't know that they have rights. They think that the school has the most rights, and not aware. So that's going to be super helpful. So parents can know, hey, I need to speak up. And how do I speak up? Maybe I don't have the words to say. Maybe I don't know. Maybe my education isn't as high, and maybe I feel like I'm dumb. So I'm just saying these are the professionals. So I'm just letting them to it. There's a shift that does need to happen. Absolutely. All right. So let's shift and turn the tide from, we're talking about the stereotypes, how it affects our students, the differences between K through 12 and higher ed, what parents can do to advocate. Now we're talking about that grit and resilience. What is it? Please just give us your definition of it, and then we're going to talk about how we can foster it in our students.
So grit is coined by Dr. Angela Duckworth. She's an author of a book called Grit. She's a best-selling author. She's amazing. She did a TED Talk. And it was through her work that it really just, I fell in love with the concept, because I realized that it was what actually helped me as well, besides the grace of God. But grit was it. Grit is when you have the passion and perseverance to obtain a long-term goal. She coined that term when she wrote the book in 2016. She's been doing work on that. But not only that, I created an acronym for it, which you can see on my back screen: Great Resilience in Time, where you're able to have a greater amount of resilience in a shorter amount of time than you have a lot of grit. If you have a less amount of resilience in a longer amount of time, then you have less grit. Grit is a trait that we can build upon. It's like a liquid. So you can have a lot of grit one day, a lot of grit for an assignment versus a little bit of grit. So for instance, if I told you, hey, I want you to write up a poem for me about grit, and if you submit it to me by 3 p.m. today, I'm going to give you $10,000. Okay, you might be more gritty to do that than if I said, hey, I want you to submit a poem for me, but it's not due till September 2025. You're not going to get any incentives for it. Whenever you get to it, just let me know, but just have it submitted by September 2025. You can feel the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I can get $10,000 if I submit it today just for writing a poem, versus I'm not going to get anything, and it's way down the line, and it's not even due, nowhere near my spectrum right now for a poem. So if I had the latter piece where it's not due till September 2025, I don't have a lot of grit towards that. I don't even care, right? I'm not going to have any resilience because I don't have to really persist or anything.
Right.
But if I had a plethora of different things on my table today that I had to get done, I'm going to start shuffling some things around because I want that $10,000.
Definitely.
So I'm going to do whatever I need to do in order to get that 10K. So I need to postpone some things, reschedule some appointments, take that great poem and take it and make that the number one thing I'm working on. Leave some messages for people. Hey, I'll get you. I know we had an appointment at 11. Let's push it back to 6 o'clock, right? Because I need to get that poem done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's resilience. And then resilience, or that's grit. Resilience is whenever you're able to overcome an obstacle and bounce back in the face of adversity. So resilience is like, okay, you're trying to run a race and it's like you're overcoming those hurdles. Whenever somebody is running track and they have to run and you have the hurdles and they're jumping over the hurdles, in order for them to really persist through that, they've got to tackle those hurdles. So in life, you're going to have hurdles that come up, right? When you're trying to pursue a goal. How do you handle those hurdles? So I think of when I was working on my doctorate and I had to work on my dissertation. Well, guess what? Towards the beginning of my dissertation, my mom had passed away,
Mm,
and my sister had passed away. My
mm,
dad passed away.
mm,
And I'm sitting here like, how am I supposed to deal with all this?
mm.
Then COVID took place. I still had a dissertation to write.
Yes, you did.
I still had a dissertation to defend. I defended my dissertation April 8th, 2020. I was defending it during COVID. We had all types of hurdles. We had to Zoom in for my dissertation defense because we couldn't meet in person. And it was a 2-hour dissertation defense. So I had to go through all of that stuff just to get a doctorate. And so we have to understand how to manage life, how to not only cope, but to triumph. And resilience is what helps you to triumph. Grit is the fuel that helps you to continue to persist throughout the day so that you can persevere and you can accomplish whatever goals that you set your mind to, in particular, those long-term goals. So that's the difference between grit and resilience. Is grit, yes, it's great resilience in time. It's that passion, perseverance you need to obtain a long-term goal. Resilience is the fuel that you need to help you bounce back in the face of adversity and to reset so that you can continue to persist and, in a scheduled amount of time for a long-term goal.
I love that. And that it's just helpful. It's helpful to hear that breakdown. And it's helpful to just visualize and see where we all need to implement that in our own lives, right? Where some of us, okay, or maybe not in school, or we're not, in K through 12 or whatever. Grit and resilience is just helpful in life in general, in life, what we need to do. So many obstacles we face, so many things happen to us, so many things affect us mentally. We need that gas to be able to put back in our car when things drain us, because our cars can get drained without us even having to move. Someone can siphon the gas out of our car. Life takes the gas out of our cars. We don't have to go 1 inch and it's already taking it out. So
Yep.
I love that. Now, how does that translate into our students? How do we foster that? How do we so it says grit, but also resilience. How do we help students of color foster that grit?
So, in order to teach that and to foster that great resilience in time, first off, you have to find out what is going on regarding their passion and their goals. Do they have passion? What are they passionate about? Everyone is passionate. Okay, I am passionate about Starbucks Frappuccinos. I'm passionate about going to the beach. I'm passionate about mango smoothies. I'm passionate about Hawaii, right? Like those are some of my passions. I'm passionate about my children and going to their track meets and supporting them. So, what are students passionate about? Are they passionate about Rihanna, Drake? Are they passionate about Sexy Red? Are they passionate about some of these other Beyoncé's and all these? Or are they passionate about something, education, academic related? If they're not passionate about academics, that's okay. Find out what they're passionate about and learn how to spin it and make it culturally relevant and make it academically relevant so that you can connect all the pieces. So if they're passionate about basketball, how can you now weave basketball into that math lesson? How can you weave Rihanna into that math lesson? There are several ways to do that. Also, when you're dealing with that, you also have to see, do they have a goal? The problem is many students don't have a goal and many students don't have the financial backing to believe in a goal. So even if they do have a goal, like, okay, I want to be an engineer, but I don't have any money. So I remember my senior year, they're like, oh, India, you need to think about going to college. I was like, college? I was homeless. College? Where am I going to get the money? I don't have any money. And they're like, scholarships. And I'm like, I got 18 scholarships and then I became passionate because I believed, yeah, I can get this. Now I have the money to back it. And that's the thing, is we need to somehow figure out how to give students money, whether it's through some type of, nonprofit that gives underserved students scholarships, or if it's through philanthropists that really want to donate their money to something that's going to make a difference and give them a return on investment. So those are some things that we have to do, but we have to figure out how to tickle their passions and then how to give them a goal if they don't have a goal. Like, so if maybe they don't know what they want to be, I always tell teachers and leaders, principals, well, then if they don't know what they want to be, can you give them 2 or 3 goals that they can, ride the coattail on until they figure out what they want to be. So when I was growing up, I thought I wanted to get a doctorate in math.
Mm.
And I thought I was going to be a stockbroker. Um, well, that was not my purpose. So I love stocks. I love all that. I love that. I even attempted, but that is not my fate. My fate was when I went and did a practicum in education, and I fell in love with the students
Yes.
like right at the end of that school year. And then when I finally started teaching, and at the end of that school year, I remember just crying at my desk because of all the love I had for those kids. I'm telling you, I was unglued. Those kids did it to me. Like, I mean, I just was like, this is my purpose. I've got to do this. I've got to help them. I've got it. And then, then my purpose became, okay, I was teacher of the year. They kept throwing teacher of the year at me. They kept throwing all this stuff at me. And I was like, well, maybe there are some nuggets that I'm doing that's right. And maybe I need to help other teachers. And so then that became my purpose. How can I help other teachers so that they feel loved? They feel like they're awesome, because they are, and that they're doing a great work, and that they also can become teacher of the year, that they can be promoted into administration, or that they can be that wonderful department head and math coach. So those are some things that we need to look into. But when it comes back to fostering grit in students, you've got to look at their passion, and you've got to look at, their goals. What is it that they're passionate about? What goals do they have in place? If they don't have a goal, help them to establish a goal. If they're not passionate, help them to refocus their passions on academics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a good way to help guide educators, because sometimes it's like you see a student who doesn't seem passionate about anything, but it's anything that we're giving them, right? We're trying to tell them, here, be passionate about this. And they're like, I don't want to be passionate about this. So we have to find out their passion. I think sometimes education is working backwards or the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to force a passion on you, or we're trying to tell you what to be passionate about instead of investigating and digging deep and showing an interest in you, right? What's your passion? What do you like to do? What is something that brings you interest? And then we work backwards from there instead of going the opposite way, because then it's like we do find the resistance, or we do find students who are like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't care about it. Even if I'm able to, achieve high marks in this, it's not something I care about. But we need to really find a way to explore their passions and then base goals off of those passions. And I think we'll see a big turnaround. Like, please, whenever you release the workshop, whatever you're going to do for parents, like, listen, and I'm going to be telling my own school about you, right? I'm going to share your socials. I'm going to talk to my principal, because these are things that need to be said in a very plain way, right? Where it's very like cut and dry. Here's what the issue is. Here's a solution to it. If we have the courage to do it, right? If we're saying that we're educators and we want to create lifelong learners, not just students who sit and absorb knowledge, but learners who learn to think outside of the box and challenge thoughts that don't make sense, right?
Right.
We're finding those passionate things in that way. And I love, again, incorporating the grit and resilience into that. You can have resilience and grit when you're passionate about something. When you said about that $10,000, I was already creating the poem in my head, right? As if this was a real scenario. I'm like, grit, because when you stir up someone's passion and when you light that fire, it's hard to put it out, and it's hard to stop a car that's just, the gas is always going to be there and filling up and filling up.
And that's it. Gritty, when people are gritty, it's like they've got that gritty gas. They keep going. You can't put it out, and that's why when people have grit and you teach grit and students recognize how gritty they are and they recognize that trait, they usually excel beyond our expectations.
They excel. They exceed what we thought, the box that we put them in, knowingly and unknowingly. I think that's wonderful. Dr. India, we have come up on our hour. I can't even begin to explain how appreciative of your insight and knowledge and, your personal stories. You gave us some things that happened to you, some things that you saw. Thank you so much for sharing, for using some of your most painful moments and times, especially in the education setting, right? For yourself as a student, to help others, right? Where you yourself are exemplifying grittiness by teaching grit, right? Where you kept going. Please give us just a few statements, just in a closing way of how to support students who are experiencing stereotypes, parents who might recognize it or don't, and just really emphasizing the need for grit and resilience. And then we do want you to share also of how people can get in contact with you, because I know many people are going to want to follow up with you, follow your socials to make sure they're aware of all you have going on.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much again for having me.
Yes.
Again, just to let you guys know, we're in this so that we can let the dove out of the cage, if, for lack of words. Every student is in particular cages of limitations, whether it's because of their backgrounds or because of their academic experience. We have to be proactive at letting them out of those cages, liberating them, helping them so that they can thrive through equitable practices and through fostering and developing grit in our students. And so we need all hands on deck. We need teachers and parents and administrators and community leaders to be intentional as they're really helping to mold the whole child and to develop productive citizens for society by fostering that grit, giving students second chances, not assuming that because they look a certain way that they are not intelligent or that they cannot thrive beyond our expectations. And then to really just make sure that the opportunities are presented in a fair and equitable manner so that all students can thrive and be successful in their prospective places. So with that said, we've got to remember grit, great resilience in time. And we have to remember that, we do have a purpose in developing grit. And that as we do this, we will definitely begin to see results, and it will help us to not only decrease that achievement gap, but it will help America to continue to thrive and to be great.
Big time. Yes, all snaps to that. How do people reach you if they want to get in contact, if they want to stay up to date with what you're doing?
Sure. So if they're wanting, to consult with me, if you're a parent or if you're a teacher, administrator, you want me to come and visit your school district or do maybe a one-on-one training or a virtual training, or you want me to come speak at an event, whatever, then you can reach me at my email is india.white.123@gmail.com. Okay. And I'll share this with you guys so that you can see the visual as well. And then also my website is going to be www.india-white.com. So I'm sharing these as I'm giving them to you in the chat.
Yep.
And then my social media, you have Facebook is going to be Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Then I have Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube channel is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. And Threads is also going to be Indy238. And we'll share these out. If you wouldn't mind sharing those, I put them in the chat for you.
Yep. I'm going to do them right now.
Okay, so we're going to have those shared for you guys so that you can follow me. And if there are any other questions or whatever, they can just reach out.
Yeah. I know people are going to want to reach out and really really understand what they can do. I think the well of knowledge that you are is very helpful, super helpful to people who might feel they're overwhelmed with everything, right? Completely overwhelmed with what to do, how to do it, the ways to go. It can be a lot. So just what you offer and what you bring. I'm just going to put the banner up here. What you offer and what you bring is very helpful. Please reach out at any of these instruments of communication just to find out more about Dr. India and how she can assist. If you're an educator and you want her to come to your school, you're a parent, you need a one-on-one, please reach out so that you can be helped. There are experts who have gone through this and who have the knowledge and expertise to help out. So we are so grateful for you tuning in. We thank you again, Dr. India, for just being here, just to give us hope, right? That, we see things going on. We understand and recognize what's being experienced, but we're not without hope. And so we're grateful and we're thankful to you. for sharing with us. And for those who will watch this live or later, please put your own experiences in the comments. Share what you've been through, and then feel the hope that was offered today, that there is a way out. There is a way for assistance to be offered, for parents and learners to be assisted and helped, that we're not in the darkness and that we are pushing forward. Come on, we're using that grit and that resilience to accomplish our goals, to keep going, to make sure we're mentally well. And so we're appreciative of you in this space. This has been another episode of Mental Health Matters. We thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on our next episode. Have an amazing rest of your day, wherever you are, in any time zone, in any location in space on the earth. We thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care, guys. Thank you.